The One God, Chapter 5, Meetings. It had been a year since we had landed. We now had a city upon the island, and all of the ring-bearers had mastered their new abilities to varying degrees. We had left the earth to try and find a place for ourselves, to move forward without impacting others or having to face the horrors of our past. It was a sad reality that this planet was inhabited. During this year, there had been strict rules in place to make sure that none of our people left the island. In fact, most of the population lived either on the island-wide city or in the ship itself, between which Seth had raised giant rock bridges and Nartinia had created railings and openings. Not one of the various life forms on this new planet had come to contact us yet. There were, however, numerous unique species of marine life in the waters around us. There had sprung up 3 schools of thought as a result of no contact. The first, and the one that I had hoped for the most, was that there was no sentient life on the planet. The second, that they were too primitive to have noticed us. And the third, that they had noticed and were now observing us to see what our next move would be. It was a week after my son's birthday. He was now a brave lad of 10. He had asked for a sword for his birthday, and I had asked Loktar to make a wooden blade for him. I was amazed at what he had made. The sword was indeed wood, but it was stunning. It had all the features and feel of a real blade, and was incredibly tough. I must admit, I took a few practice swings with it myself before hiding it away for his birthday. On the day, he had been radiant, swinging it about as if it were an extension of himself almost instantly. I was so proud of him when he came before me and held it out to me. "Please, Dad, find someone to teach me to use it. I don't want to hurt anyone by accident," he had said, with a concerned look on his face. I swelled inside and immediately set out to find Mikael. She had said it would be her greatest pleasure, although she would need to back down in a few months. She was pregnant. I was thrilled, as she introduced me to the soon-to-be father Lemest, and I invited them both back to my home with me. The rest of the day was spent in celebration, the kids of all the other ring-bearers coming by to spend the day with my son. The youths had formed swift friendships between each other, either being idolized or scorned because of their parents. They had found companionship with the other children. Now that day was a week in the past, and we were in council. A very serious mood pervaded us today, as we would set out to find out what else was on this planet. We had decided to do so in person, so that we could face the consequences of what we found directly, instead of like in the past, where we had cowered behind cloaking systems, always observing but never interacting. I saw Seth out of the corner of my eye. He was standing by a young woman with black hair. He had been trying to get her attention for months, but as far as I knew, their relationship was still platonic. Not that she was cold towards him, but I had the feeling that she was stringing him along, always giving him just enough hope to stop him from giving up. I did not approve of this. It was a form of bullying. But I knew that Seth would not believe me now. He would have to find out for himself that it was more than just muscles that could give you power over someone. Nartinia stood. "All right, it has been decided then. Misake, Mikael, Loktar, and myself shall head towards the south, and Maximus, Seth, Augustus, and Matthias shall head north. When you are ready, please step out onto the platform and activate." The platform had been built when we had discovered that we all had a method of flight. I activated my belt and took to the sky on my silver wings. To my side was Seth on a rock that was constantly reforming itself under him, Augustus streaming flames behind him, and Matthias, was now a bright streak. Matthias was by far the fastest of us, but he kept pace with us as we flew in a U formation towards the continent he had called Zion. I now believe it would be the best time to include a map I had drawn in my spare time of the world we were now on. As you can see from the map, Soldarium, although we had called it an island, was quite a sizable piece of land, especially when you take into consideration the fact of roughly Earth scale. It was an amazing planet, that's for sure. We had fully scanned the nearby continent of Montana, and although massive, it did not contain any signs of sentient life. It did, however, contain a vast array of creatures, ranging from insect to even mammal, and a few new categories that scientists were eager to begin cataloguing. However, today was about exploring Zion, and Cunette, where the other half of our members had gone. These 2 continents were just out of the range of the finer scanner's capabilities, so we had no clue as to what types of life forms called them home. Seth turned to me. Maximus?" "Yes, Seth, what is it?" I was wondering, If we don't find other sentient life and they don't know about God, what does that mean? I heard Augustus and Matthias laugh. We had been talking about the same thing the night before. We spoke of this, and the conclusion that we came to is if they do not know God, or they worship their own, then that would actually make more sense. But isn't our God the God of the whole universe? Yes, Seth, but we are his children, so of course we would have a history rich in his works. His Son came so that we might be forgiven our sins. However, an alien species might never have committed a sin and fallen from grace. But even if they had, their positions as creations rather than adopted sons, or being made in his image, would lessen the responsibility for these sins greatly. Take the special messengers or heavenly beings, for example. Their sins or falling is not judged as harshly as one of ours is, because they are not of equal responsibility to us. So it sounds as if it would be better to be an alien then, laughed Seth. True, they cannot fall as far as we can, but because of that they cannot rise as high either. For we are able to become like God, not greater than God, but like him. Seth was quiet for a while and then asked, What are you hoping to find, Maximus? I sincerely hope that there is no intelligent life. When we left Earth to run from the horrors of our past and to prevent us from impacting any further on the people left there, I would not have us ruin another species' future for the sake of one branch of ours. Matthias spoke up. Maximus, must you always be such a pessimist? With the rings now, and the belief that you have shared with us, surely it would be only beneficial if we were to meet and share with another species. The help we could give them would be great. Careful, Matthias, you speak in pride. Who's to say that we hold a superior virtue or a grander strength than those we may meet? Who's to say that they do not have higher faith in God, or a technology greater than the rings? Even if they do not, we still have no right to call their planet our own in exchange for services. If we are to live alongside sentient life, it will be on their conditions, as it was their planet first. We were silent for a while, and then talk turned to more mundane matters. It was about 4 hours later when Augustus spotted Xion on the horizon, which gave us a speed of roughly 3,474 kilometers an hour. That was incredibly fast, as we were not going full speed at the time. We were exhausted, however. This may not have been a sprint, but a marathon of 4 hours at that speed was stretching, to say the least. I thank God that whoever had made the Lacadna had made them stable enough to support such pressures that they had to face at these speeds. We had all noticed that the longer we worked with the rings, the more we were able to do with them. The usage of them was taxing, though. The first few times were the hardest, growing easier as we went. This was the greatest use of them so far, and we had brought with us homing beacons and life rafts in case they should fail us. Fortunately they had not, and now we landed on the beach. It was magnificent, a soft white sand and crystal-like waters. Above the beach rose cliffs, topped with verdant forest, and the sound of bird calls was almost deafening. I felt a shuffling in my breastplate, and Slinia poked out his beak, and giving a loud hoot, and flying about and circling above us. Now, no showing off, Slinia, I scolded. Maximus, you brought him with you? Asked Augustus, smiling. Of course, he is my most trusted confidant. I could not make the journey without him. Slinia gave a hoot of affirmation from above. Seth laughed and said, He reminds me of my dad's Lekest. That Kutora never leaves my dad's side. Just then we heard a crash from the forest and saw trees fall from the cliffside. Out of the mass of trees came a massive form, a giant scaly head swaying side to side. I flew upwards as Slinia came to sit on my shoulder. The creature was one of a herd of such, with bodies roughly 92 feet long and 23 feet high. Their whole bodies were not scaled, only their heads. The rest were covered in flesh and patches of a shining substance. I took a moment to sketch them. The trees themselves were large, stretching to heights of roughly 284 feet. The creatures seemed to be herbivores, eating from the leaves of the shorter trees and the branches of the taller ones. They were truly a marvel to look upon, but did not seem to exhibit anything more than a passing curiosity in our presence. So after a short rest, we carried on inwards towards the center of the continent. It was about an hour till we reached the center of the continent, and although we passed many marvelous creatures, none were as impressive as the giants we had seen in the first forest. In fact, from what we had seen, the continent was largely covered in forest, and was very hilly. Rather hilly was not the word, but mountainous. There were many valleys with sharp crevices and ravines being commonplace. It was breathtaking scenery. Often vines would cross from trees on one side of a ravine to another, forming a sort of roofed ravine, and others were laid bare with rivers and waterfalls cascading down, crashing against the rocks below. About 10 minutes back, we had passed the deepest of these crevices yet. It stretched so far below the surrounding land and was so large that we had all stopped and flew down to it. It was about the size of a small island, and we were astounded by it, and baffled as to what could have caused it. Augustus launched a fireball down, and its light disappeared before he felt its presence disappear about a minute later. From the center we set off south, back towards the ocean. We finally came to a stop when we saw two mountain ranges converging in a sort of arrow formation. At the meeting of this formation arose smoke, and we all grew a bit nervous. We flew down to the ground and landed, deciding to go the rest of the way on foot. It was about a 12-minute walk until we saw a group of buildings circling round a smoking campfire. It seemed our new planet was indeed inhabited. The buildings were tent-like, but seemed to be permanent structures, as if there were paved paths between them, all stretching to the central fire. All the buildings faced the fire, and there were roughly 20 of them in all. It was early morning, and we saw no people around. We sat in the bushes and waited, silent. It was a while later, and we saw a door flap lift, and a small childlike being run out of the tent, making a sound like laughter. He was followed soon after by a feminine-looking figure with a sling bag over her shoulder. They looked almost human, although they had sharp ears with 2 points to them, and no nose, but rather 2 vertical slits in the middle of their faces with 6 nostrils, laid 3 along each slit. Their movements were very graceful, with even the childlike one jumping about as if under lesser gravity. It was a few minutes later, and the clearing was now filled with these beings. They had their own language and spoke to one another. It was pleasant sounding and not very gruttal. We had engaged cloaking, as now we had found what appeared to be sentient life, we would have to return with this information before any attempts to approach it in dialogue could begin. We observed a few more minutes and saw what we had decided was a little boy run into the forest. I motioned for us to begin returning, but we suddenly heard a scream coming from the direction the child had come. We flew up into the sky, and then down through the canopy towards the direction of the scream, and saw the child with his back against a rock, and a creature similar to a lion bearing down on him. I felt a gathering of power from Augustus, and Matthias obviously felt it too, as he said urgently, "We are not to engage." "Neshne to that," said Augustus, as a giant flame ball appeared in front of the creature. It lent out a whimper and fled back into the forest, the boy getting up and running back towards the village at the same time. "That was not well advised, Augustus," said Matthias. "I could not leave the child to die, Matthias," retorted Augustus. "Yes, but something more subtle." "What's done is done," I interrupted. "Come, let's head back. We must share this news with the others." We headed about 10 kilometers back and then settled on the side of a mountain. "Alrighty then, let's get a hold of the others." I took out a long cylinder from my pocket. It looked to be made from a type of red marble. It had 3 large buttons on it. Pressing the top one, I placed it flat on the ground. It was still for a while and then began spinning faster and faster. Suddenly it emitted light, and it seemed as if Loktar were standing right in front of us. "Greetings, friends. You found something?" "Yes, Loktar. We think we have found sentient life." "Ha ha! Such news! I am jubilant. Please tell me that they express themselves vocally." "We think so. Here, we recorded a bit of dialect. See what you can make of it." Oh yes. Yes. Contribute to me a few minutes by way of this, Maximus. I do trust I can do some degree to translate this." "That would be most helpful." The Lamont dropped to the ground and stopped spinning. "Well, now we wait." "So, what did the other group want?" I asked as Loktar caught up with me. "It looks as if they have accomplished their objective. They have found what they consider to be sentient life." "How deviating. I must say I expressed buoyancy at the inkling that we might find some too, Michael." The way he spoke always gave me a headache, but if you wanted words down on a paper, he was your man. "So, did this new people have speech?" "Oh yes, oh certainly yes. Here, attend to this. Navrian, nors tertian, sjorden, nuren jere, nures piela." It goes on a similar vein for a duration, undulating between very high pitch to a lower bass, almost in a rhythmic fashion. It seems to derive meaning not only from its words, but the flow and pitch of the words themselves, with each individual syllable encompassing an idea, and a word encompassing a thought pattern. A very concise pattern of speech that... Okay, can you translate it? I believe so. Good. We need to catch up to Misake and His Highness. Loktar spoke to himself and tinkered on his wristband the whole way back from the island, which we had landed on when the Lamont had begun to glow. It was only a few minutes later that we saw the mainland. It was a splendid, tall cliffs that rose sharply from the sea, forming the bases of giant mountains. There were no trees or vegetation in sight, but the sensors showed the area to be teeming with life. We landed on top of one of the mountains next to Misake and the Emperor. Oh yes, yes. Loktar was still tinkering with his wristband. So, it looks as if they have found something to interest Loktar, His Highness said. Yes, they found a sentient species, I replied. Well, presumed sentient at least, I am sure. They could not have validated the theory so quickly. Although this language is simply astounding, said Loktar, finally looking up from his wristband. Excuse? Came a soft voice. Good. Now, do any of you see any life around here? These readings make no sense. No, Your Highness, we don't see anything either. The voice repeated. It is entirely possible that the scanner may have been somewhat damaged during the fold, Loktar said. Yes, that could be. I guess we'll just have to press further in and see if there are any visible signs further inland. Before we... Yes, Your Highness, I do think that is a good idea. Suddenly, a giant lightning bolt tore through the air and landed inches away. I'm sorry, I was trying to talk and no one was listening and then... I smiled, and Nartinia and Loktar burst out laughing. Misake held the pearl ring, giving her power over electricity. She was just such a shy person, but was willing to go any distance for those who needed help. I had only really gotten to know her well after we got the rings, but even though we couldn't be more different, I had found myself growing quite fond of the girl. Yes, Misake, we will listen, lass, the Emperor said. There's a cave over there. It looks as if it's glowing. Maybe that's where the life is? Excellent, a most astute observation, I say. Yes, well done, all right, then let's head towards the opening. We flew down to the entrance and were forced to enter one by one. Once we were inside, though, the sight that met our eyes was simply breathtaking. It was as if the whole mountain range was hollow, and stretching out as far as the eye could see was a sky full of multicolored stars. The land below was filled with all sorts of plants and flowers, and there were even trees, although they were bleached white, and gave off an ethereal glow. The most amazing sight was the plethora of wildlife that filled the caves. All kinds of species intermingled and moved about on the surface. Loktar flew up to the ceiling and returned holding what appeared to be an incandescent worm in both of his hands. The worm was a green color and roughly 2 feet long and a foot wide, tapering off at both ends. He said that this was one of the smaller ones up there, so these were what gave the cave's roof the look of a starfield. We ventured into the caves, the soft dripping water quite loud in our ears. Although the caves were full of life, it was mostly silent, only a rustling every now and then letting us know that we had disturbed one of the creatures by our passing. It took us over 2 hours to fly through the massed network of caves, each and every corner revealing a new wonder. I still felt as if we hadn't seen even an eighth of what these caves had to offer when we saw a hole in the roof and flew through it to be met with a sweeping plain stretching to the horizon. It appeared we had come to the end of the mountain chain. On the plain below, creatures like horses galloped across the plains, kicking up long trails of dust in their wake. Birds flew above our head, and in the distance we could see a crimson sun setting below the horizon. "I have it!" exclaimed Loktar. "I've worked out the language code. Here we go. What they said could be roughly translated to, 'Take care, young one, on your outing. There is a strange feeling in the winds this morn.' A most amazing tongue, yes. I must send this to Maximus immediately." The Lamont began to spin, and Loktar excitedly shared with us the news of his working out the new tongue. I held my wristband to the Lamont, and Loktar transferred the translation program into it. We now hopefully had the ability to speak to these beings, and now we had to make first contact. We flew once again towards the clearing engaging the cloak. The sun lay half hidden by the mountains. The peoples all gathered around the central fire. We disengaged the cloak and strode slowly forward towards the villagers. The mother and the young child was the first to notice us, pointing to us and pulling her younger one closer to her at the same time. A large male with a long white beard unfolded from his sitting position and came slowly towards us, leaning heavily on a stick. "We wish you no harm upon you or your people," I said as he reached us. "You speak our tongue? It is good, I suppose, then, that you wish us no harm, for we do not know yours." "You know we are not native speakers? It is obvious from your lack of emotion when speaking, but I seem to understand you well enough. Please come sit and warm yourselves by the fire. I assume your people are the cause of the great fire that crashed through the sky a year ago?" I was amazed by his calmness. He did not seem at all perturbed by the completely new beings coming into his presence. "Yes, that was our starship landing," I said, taking a seat. "Ha! Ha ha ha! Good, and good. Now the young ones will not think me so crazy when I speak of how we arrived here." "You mean you are not from this planet either?" "No, I do not believe we are. You see, my father was still a young one himself at that stage, and he always told me stories of how people had been brought here, through the stars on a giant metal ship." "Brought here? You mean not of his own will?" "No, apparently we were a captured people, brought here merely for study, although what happened to the captors none of us know. Are you perhaps they?" "No, I assure you we are not. We came here looking for a new home away from ours." My father told me that the captors were able to tell falsehoods. Lies, he called them, twisting the truth for their own means. I must know, do you have this ability?" "Yes, we do, although we try not to. You do not?" This is most troubling to me. How can we tell if your speech is true or not?" "No, we cannot tell falsehoods. If we do, then we are no longer. We become Parash. It is a thing to be most pitiable. We have one such in the house back there. We care for him as best we can." "This is truly a sad thing to lose one's sense of self." "Yes, although we know the penalty, and thus we live accordingly." "My apologies, I have not introduced myself or my companions. I am Maximus, and these with me are Augustus, Matthias, and Seth. I am known as Alenkar, and my people as the Tinora." "Are there many such as yourself?" "We are one of 500 tribes across this land. Yourselves?" "There are 44 million of us landed on an island on the other continent." "Which continent?" "The one herest of here. It is good land, but our people do not live there." "You know of the world?" "Yes, we were left some maps and tools from the creators. There was only one other people on the main planet before the arrival of yourselves." "You know of others?" "There is the Pohaka on the continent we call Zaron. This is the land we call Zion, and the land you come from, Mantana." "You said other people on the main planet. Are there peoples on the moons?" "I do not know. This is why I had to be specific." "I see. Elkanah, we shall speak to whoever is the recognized leader of all your people." "I am he. What is it you wish to ask of me?" We will have to ask the Pohaka as well, but may we make this planet our home as it is yours?" "You will not find ease in dealing with the Pohaka. They are unlike us. They also hold the ability to be false, and have a great lust for power and riches. We once lived on Zauron along with them, but we fled here when they turned against us. You couldn't stand up to them? We cannot perform violence against another sentient being. This too is to make us Parash." "I'm sorry. Perhaps we could work out something with these Pohaka." "I do not believe that possible. You, although you are able to be intentionally false, and it appears that you are able to harm others intentionally as well, it seems as though you do not hold the same malice in your hearts as the Pohaka do. I would have welcomed you to share in not only our fire, but our planet as well. Please take care of it." "Thank you. That is most kind. We will do our best to keep it and your people safe. We must, however, go to the Pohaka and find out their side." "Do as you say. Now, come, let us celebrate this meeting." Music sprang up, and they produced instruments seemingly from thin air. We danced with them and celebrated long into the night, and then were welcomed into their homes for a very restful sleep. In the morning I awoke to a steaming mug next to my bed, and a delicious-smelling vegetable that was still sizzling on a hot plate. I ran a scan on the drink and food, and discovered it was safe to eat. Not that I distrusted the Tinora. I did not know if we were able to eat the same things as them or not. Placing a slice of the vegetable on my tongue was a strange experience. There was no taste at first, and I was getting ready for a bland meal. However, then there was a sudden explosion of a rich, oily taste, and a slightly crisp bite, followed by a soothing aftertaste. I looked down at the plate in wonder. So much flavour in such a small plant. I eagerly picked up the steaming cup, and carefully brought the top to my lips. The liquid was a rich brown, and had a subtle froth to the top. It was creamy and luxuriant, or so I thought at first, until a sharp bitterness hit, and I was almost forced to spit it out. I cautiously made my way to the bottom of the cup before resuming the vegetable, using its taste to mask that of the liquid. A flap to my room flew up, and in ran the little boy we had seen in the forest yesterday. "I'm right, aren't I?" he asked. "About what, my young man?" I inquired. There was another shuffling as, with back bowed, the child's mother entered. She grabbed the boy and said, "Please forgive my son. He is so full of ideas. He comes so close to Prahash that I worry about him sometimes. He means well, but his mind won't stop thinking." "You mean you shouldn't think too much?" I was aghast at this. I myself like to ponder and think deeply of things. To be not denied of this seemed a form of torture. It is not well that we think of things that we do not know. If we know, then it is all right. But if we speak of what we believe to be true now, but later to find it out to be a falsehood, then we run the danger of becoming Prahash. If we cannot reconcile that truth within ourselves. He is still young, so the effects are not so great on him yet, but I fear for when he grows older. "Mum, please can I talk to him? Please." "I'm sure the man does not want to be disturbed this early in the morning, my dear." "Please, I am curious as to the boy's question." "Very well, Elzasma. Be quick. You need to bath before the gathering." "Okay, Mum." With this, the lady left the two of us, and Elzasma turned to me, his big round eyes gleaming at me. "I would like to answer your question, but first, please tell me what it is," I said, smiling at the boy. "Yesterday in the forest, you were the ones who made the giant fireball, right?" What to say? Well, I might as well give a truthful response to the people of the truth. "Yes, Elzasma. My friend Augustus couldn't see harm come to you." "Wow, I thought so. How did he do it?" "Without technology." "How does it work?" Wow, she wasn't kidding. This kid doesn't stop. "I don't have permission to say, but I would like to." "Oh, but—" "Elzasma, enough. Bath, now." "Mom, don't make me come fetch you." I laughed. This could have been a scene from my own home growing up. It was midday, and we were ready to depart. I stood before Elkanah and the rest of the Tinora. "It has been an honor meeting you. Thank you for the warm welcome. We wish to send some more people to come meet with you and your people in a few days, if you would allow this." "It would be a pleasure to host our new neighbors. I ask that you give at least a week, so that I can call all of the leaders together to discuss what has happened." So they have a very fast method of communicating across the continent, I thought to myself. "I have one more request," said Elkanah. "Please ask." "This is my daughter Yasmin. I believe you stayed the night in her house." "Yes, she was a most generous host. I would ask that you would take her and my grandson Elzasma with you, as our representatives to your people." I would be most honored, but please, you do me too much honor sending me with your family." "It is the way of my people. Those in charge must put their people first." "Although my father is leader, it was my choice to come. I have no problem, and understand I may never see my home again if you are not what you appear." Their honesty could sometimes be brutal. "I assure you, Yasmin and Elzasma, I will do all in my power to keep you safe. And Elkanah, I will do my best to bring them back to you." "I can ask for no more. Go well, my new friends. Salante, Elkanah. May we meet again." Seth ornamented the ground around Yasmin and Elzasma, forming a platform similar to his own, and we rose into the skies. I would be back home soon, and I could not wait to see the faces of Nidara and Niaran again.